people want really low interest rates. And so assumable loans are the things that are coming back right now where people are trying to assume other people's loans. But I talked a couple of weeks ago about for veterans, you need to be careful of letting someone assume your loan because there are some stipulations that you need to know about. What's up, everybody? Mark Cannonre, your local realtor here in the Phoenix area, and we're talking assumable loans today. Now, caveat, okay? I am not a lender. I am not an expert when it comes to assumable loans, but I know enough to be dangerous, and I've run into some of these situations recently with some clients that I wanted to put it out there to kind of put a warning out there, especially for veterans. They've served our country. They've done so many great things. We need to be able to protect them and make sure that they understand everything when it comes to their loans. So let's break it down just a little bit. So with assumable loans, if you need to learn more about that, go watch my other video on assumable loans. But for veterans, you need to understand that you have an allowance. So you have something that's called a veteran's allowance. So like when you go to buy a house, you can buy it up to X amount of dollars. And I think it varies by veteran and depend on like what your job and all these different things were. So there is going to be different allowances for different people. And so it's one of those that when you go and let's say you buy a house, you've used up part of that allowance. So let's say your allowance is like $700,000, okay? And let's say you buy a house for $500,000. That means you have like $200,000 left in your allowance that you could use. Now, most people don't because, especially here in Phoenix, it's hard to find something that cheap, right? that you could buy. But it's one of those that a lot of times people don't understand, oh, they have an allowance that they can use from the VA because it's government backed, right? So first thing you need to understand is the good situation and the only okay time to have someone else assume your loan is if it's another veteran. So if you own a home and another veteran comes and they're able to make the equity difference and they're able to do the assumable loan, that's okay because you don't lose your allowance. So when you have that allowance, you don't lose it because another veteran inherited it, so you can go use your VA loan to buy another property. Now, the thing that you have to be careful of, and this is where we ran into the situation recently, was if you're a veteran and someone that's not a veteran, not using a VA loan, let's say they're doing FHA or something like that, where they're going to try and assume your loan, you lose your allowance. What does that mean? So let's say you had a $700,000 allowance, it's a $500,000 loan, and someone non-veteran assumes it, you can't go use that veteran's loan for another $500,000, $600,000 house because they have your loan. They've assumed the VA loan. And so it's one of those that now you're like, oh, well, that's not good. Yeah, because we ran into the situation recently. I had a client, non-VA client. We were trying to buy this house, and they said, hey, we have an assumable loan. We said, great. So we started going through it, and I started making sure I did my due diligence with everything. And I was like, okay, it's a veteran. Does he understand that he's going to lose his allowance? And the listing agent didn't know that. And listen, it's one of those that thankfully we were able to kind of say, hey, let's talk through this. And we still ended up buying the house even though we didn't do the assumable loan. But we had to let them know. And once he realized, oh man, I'm going to lose my allowance, I couldn't use the VA loan again, he didn't want to do that. And that's the right call. The only time that you should really be giving up your VA allowance, like I've seen some clients where they're in their late 70s, early 80s, moving in with a family member or something, and they're like, listen, I'm not going to buy another house. Okay, like I get that. I get letting someone assume your loan because you're probably not going to use it. But that's one of the few rare situations that would be okay. Because as a veteran, you want the ability to be able to use this. I actually was just talking with another client recently where someone asked to assume his loan as a VA. And he asked me and I said, no, because you want to use the VA in the future. He's like, oh yeah, you're right. I do want to use it in the future. And some people think, well, I'm not going to use it for the next 10 years, but what about in 15 years or 20 years? Do you need to use that? And as long as that loan's on that house, you're not able to use the VA unless, they pay it off. And there's a lot of semantics in there. But you need to be careful as a veteran to not let someone assume your loan unless it's another veteran. That's really the only situation that you should be allowing that. And I give this information just because I want help people to be careful. So if you have questions on this or you're looking to buy or sell or whatever it is, whether it be a veteran loan or other loans, I work all of them, let me know. I'd love to talk with you. My information's below. I hope this has been helpful. Guys, you've been listening to The Real.